Next up, let's put this inside of a dialog and create a button on our friend's table that, when clicked, opens the dialog for this form. Okay, scrolling down a little bit here, if I click on this card, Control-Shift-P, wrap with abbreviation. And by the way, I've set this to a shortcut, Control-Shift-Enter, because I do this all of the time. So I'll use the hotkey here now, Control-Shift-Enter, Q-dialog. And now we need to model something on this dialog to show and hide it. So how about this? V-model is equal to show create dialog. And then we'll copy that, come up here, and then create that ref. Make sure ref is imported, and it is. Save it. And now that this is in a dialog, it's not showing by default. Next, on the table in the top right, we want to have a button. And when we click on that button, we want to set show create dialog to true. And therefore, this dialog is then going to show. Okay, so let's do that. Q-button. We can now use the icon stuff that we learned in the previous video. :icon is equal to MDI plus. So we can press tab to import that icon, save it. There it is. Now let's make this round and give it a color equal to primary. Okay, that's looking good. Next up, we'll set show create dialog equal to true when that button is clicked. So at click, show create dialog is equal to true. Save it, click on the button, and how cool is that? It works. Next, let's make it so that this dialog disappears after we create a friend. So I'm going to copy this, Control-C, a new line here, and when we're done creating the friend, show create dialog.value is equal to false. All right, plus name, Onion, that's what I call Shannon. It's a long story. Shannon at example.com. Age, apparently it can be rude to say people's age, so I'm going to set it to the age she was when I met her, which is 24. Yes, she is human. I'm pretty sure she's human. And she uses Windows. So let's come down here and choose a nice color for Shannon and then press create. Now, when we click on create here, after Shannon is added to my friends list, the show create dialog should then disappear. All right, let's try that. Boom, and it works. Now, the last thing we're going to do is extract this to its own component. This is one of my favorite things to do because Vue makes extracting logic so simple. And the first thing we're going to do is go over the API that we want. So if I scroll down a little bit here, this is the API that I think would be good. We can call the component create friend dialog. I like the last word in my components to match the component that is used under the hood. So since Q dialog will be at the root, we use the word dialog at the end here. That's just a personal preference. And what are we going to add in? Well, we would v-model it just like how we usually do, but I'd also want to model for the form. So we'd say v-model form, and that would be modeled with the form. And then we'd also want a create event at create, and then that would call create friend like this. Okay, I think that's a pretty good API. So let's do Control-Alt-M to reveal this file in our Explorer. We're kind of running out of space here, so let's create a new folder and call it index page. And then we'll just move index page and friends into that folder. Now that's going to break things because the route is not going to be correct anymore. So let's quickly jump into router, routes, and index page is now in its own folder. So we add the index page folder there. Save it, and it's working again, but now we've got a little place to put all of our index page related logic, and we'll create a new file in there called create friend dialog.view. Now let's do this. I'm going to go full screen now so that we can focus. Let's open up the index page, Control-2, and then we'll open up the Create Friend dialog page on the right. Let's get to work. Script setup. Inside of the template, we can whack in the dialog. So I'm going to grab all of that dialog. Oh, this is a good feeling when you extract logic. I love it. And then we can paste that directly inside of the template. Now we need to give this everything that it needs. We're not going to change the way the model works, so I can just go ahead and remove this. We also want to model the form. So we can do that by saying const define model. I love define model. I think it's one of the greatest features that we got recently in Vue. And we can set that equal to form. Const form is equal to define model form. Now next, our lint is actually going to complain because it also wants us to at least define the type. An object. So there we go. This part's done because it didn't need any changing. We're now modeling the form on the component. The last thing we need is this create event. So we'll come down here and say const emit is equal to define emit. This is how you create events. And this event will be called create. So when we call emit create, then at create is going to be hit. Then the create friend function is going to be called. Okay, so next up, let's get rid of that. At submit, we're going to emit this create event. So that looks good. Control space to import that component. If that doesn't show up for you, you might need to restart the Vue server by saying Control Shift P Vue and then restart Vue and TS server. Sometimes I need to do that when I create new files. And then you should be able to say Control space on that component and then easily import it. And we're done. That has been extracted. So just to quickly cover what's happening here, we're modeling form, which means that form here will be in sync with the form variable here. So as the user puts in their name and their email, all of those changes come into the form here. And therefore, when we go to create the friend, it's populated. So that's how that part works. And then when we submit the form by pressing the button, this at submit event gets called, which calls emit create. And then this component hears that. And then the create friend function gets called. Okay, this is probably another one of those moments where you might want to watch the last 30 seconds or so to understand that entire cycle. But now we can close this out and we've extracted all of that logic into this beautiful little component. Let's see if it works. Throwing that onto the side, let's create Panda, which is one of my dogs. Panda at example.com. I believe she's 9 years old. She is not a human. Sometimes she thinks she is. And then we can jump over to Mac, because Panda likes using Mac when we're out and about. She's sitting on her little Mac computer, tapping away with her paws. And then we can press create. And there we go. That was a successful refactor. Okay, that was really fun. I love doing this kind of thing. Next up, we're going to go a little bit deeper into forms, talking about the validation that Quasar gives us out of the box. See you there.